All right, so we are taking a look at the matrix that we've created from this article. So we know that we are kind of flip-flopping now between opinion and informational. And when we looked at the prompt here, we saw that for this essay, we are writing an informational essay. And our goal is to explain these problems that can occur from invasive plants and animals. So by now you've watched a couple different videos, you've learned even more about some of these invasive species, and hopefully now you've read through the text, you've coded the text, and now you have a completed matrix. So in this video, I'm just going to kind of quickly review my matrix and talk about my big ideas and just share with you a couple different things I noticed as I was reading. The first thing that I want to do, I want to show you guys my article. So when we say that you need to go through and annotate or code the text, just take a look at my article. Do you see all of the underlining and some of the details that I have here in the margin? Then I read through source 2 and I did the exact same thing. There was something down here at the bottom of source 2 when I read this very last sentence, and you can see here I wrote the word quote. Released pets have the potential to wreak havoc. I kind of know that word. That means like to cause a lot of problems on native environments, endangering plants, animals, and humans in the area. So I thought, you know what? That sounds pretty good, because in the first article, I learned all about those monkeys and all the problems that they're causing there in Central Florida. They're killing trees. They're taking food. They're polluting the water. And that's kind of supported right here by the environment, the plants, the animals, and the humans. In this article, we learned a little bit about 3 different animals, right? The python, the green iguana, and lionfish. And these were all pets. Former pets that people own that were either released or escaped out into the wild. In source 3, you can see again more annotating and more, even down here, quoting, right? Possible quotes. And then if you look at the title, accidentally invasive, we learned in this article that some of these invasive species, really people had good intentions when they brought those and introduced those here. Down here, take a look at this sentence that I wrote. The lesson we can learn from kudzu and cane toads is simply do not bring non-native species into a new environment, even if it is for good reasons. So those are just a couple things I wanted to point out. When you're reading and coding your text, it should look kind of similar. Maybe you don't underline quite as much, but you should have some of those ideas jotted down. I know that spending a little bit of time on the matrix can kind of be frustrating. However, it is worth it in the long run. Once you get to your essay, you have a pretty good idea of the information you want to include. So let's quickly go over this. We know the type. This is informational. It's not opinion. The topic, it's on invasive plants and animals. And then the task. Okay, so what do we have to do with that? We have to explain to our reader the problems that are caused by some of these invasive plants and animals. So before I go into my introduction and my big ideas, let's talk about source 1. In source 1, we learned about those different monkeys, right? They were brought because they wanted to create this like Tarzan attraction. That was mentioned in paragraph 2. Now, what happened, it's kind of cause and effect. What's happening is that they're leaving the state park. People didn't know that they could swim as well as they did, and they left. They ventured off, they're starting to reproduce, and now they're multiplying, and they're kind of taking over. What's happening? They're killing trees, they're taking food from native animals, and they're also polluting the water. Something else that was mentioned, they can charge humans, right? They can even attack, they may attack, it said sometimes that's pretty nasty, and they can carry deadly viruses. Scientists predicted that in 2022, there are going to be at least 400 of these monkeys now in Florida. Let's move on to source 2. Here we were introduced again to those pets, pythons, green iguanas, and lionfish. So I went ahead and wrote down these 3 animals, and then I went back and kind of looked at my notes, glanced at the paragraph, and thought, okay, well, remembering that my task was to explain the problems, you can see I even wrote that at the top, right, of each page, just to remind myself of kind of my goal or my purpose as I'm reading through. Problems from these plants and animals. So then I went back and I thought, okay, so what's happening? Well, they're eating some of the animals that are native, such as possums, raccoons, foxes, and rabbits, causing the population to decrease or decline. Green iguanas, they're chewers, right? They're causing power and cable outages from chewing on those cables. They're also biting probably other animals, maybe dogs, cats. They're a threat to those. Humans, they can bite, and they can also suffer from tail slashes. They mentioned again dogs and cats. As far as humans, they carry salmonella. That is a disease that can make humans very sick. The last creature that we were introduced to in source 2 is the lionfish. Again, really cool to look at in an aquarium, but when introduced as an invasive species to a native environment, they're eating a lot of the food, including lobster and grouper. And what that's impacting is your commercial fishing industry. They're actually having people go out and have contests for killing these animals to try to decrease that population. Last but not least, source 3. Now, these 2 were introduced on purpose, right? We have that bufo toad and the kudzu. One is an animal and one is a plant. This one was introduced to help control bugs, to help farmers. However, they learned that they release a toxin and it actually kills snakes, lizards, and dogs. For humans, it can burn their skin and irritate their eyes. Now, the plant kudzu, that came from Japan. We learned that people liked that because it grows quickly. They thought, oh, that can be good food for cattle. It can also prevent soil erosion. However, what they quickly learned is that it's growing at such a rapid rate, it's starting to take over. What's happening? It's suffocating plants, it's covering homes and cars. And then, in turn, what happens is that when you have less of a plant variety, then you have fewer herbivores because they look elsewhere for their food. When you have less herbivores, then you have less carnivores because these guys feed on these guys. And these guys feed on your plants. And now all you've got is a bunch of kudzu. So that's a problem. The other thing it's impacting are agriculture and forest businesses. Why? Because they're losing this astonishing amount of $500 million per year. Why? Because it's killing their crops and they're having to spend all this money and time to try to cut back that kudzu. So, bum-ba-da-bum, big ideas. What are we thinking? Well, what I really focused on a lot here was that it's impacting, it's taking food, so impacting animals. It's decreasing the animal population here in source 2. Again, it's hurting dogs and cats, so affecting animals. Lionfish, it's eating these animals, so impacting animals. Right here, killing snakes, dogs, lizards, it's impacting animals. And then kudzu, it is having an impact on the animals, kind of in an indirect way because now your herbivores and carnivores have to relocate. So, big ideas. Here we go. Almost done. I would say we are impacting animals. Again, those are your native animals. The ones that were like, hey, this was my home. Now, what else? Well, it's having an impact on other plants, right? We saw that right here. The monkeys are killing trees. And we saw it here, all the way down here. The kudzu is kind of taking over. So your native plants, the ones that originally grew there, so it's impacting plants, specifically those that were native to the area. The other big idea that I read a lot about was that, let's see here. Oh, humans. Salmonella, bites, tail slash. Let's talk about humans. Humans, the commercial fishing industry, even though it's not impacting them in like a health way, it's impacting their business. Let's see here. Humans, burn skin, irritate eyes, or irritate skin and burn eyes. Kudzu, affecting humans. It's killing their business. So we want to focus on humans, And spell it correctly, Mrs. Body, Humans. And then what we're going to talk about in reference to humans is health and business. So now we can just peek really quick at my intro, which includes those big ideas. Invasive species of plants and animals can be very harmful to the native plant and animal life. There's two big ideas. Invasive species can also have a negative impact on people. So there are my three big ideas. My conclusion, I know that Daniel is like awesome at this. Shout out to Daniel. He tends to reword things so it doesn't get too repetitive. So in his conclusion, he does this, and I kind of borrowed this from him. I'm just going to rewrite it so it doesn't sound the exact same as my intro. Native plants and animals, as well as people. So now I'm including my big ideas right here at the beginning. As well as people are hurt and negatively impacted by invasive plants and animals. Whew, that was a lot. All right, so there's the matrix. If you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, in part 2 of this video, which will be a separate video, we're going to go through and just talk briefly about how writers can introduce their essay.